of that? That sudden discomfort penetrating your skin? That inexplicable anxiety taking over your nervous system? That's infrasound. The sound you cannot consciously hear, but that your primitive brain detects as imminent lethal threat. Now imagine that sensation amplified 1,000 times, directed like an invisible projectile against your mind, transformed into a weapon of psychological destruction by civilizations that mastered acoustic physics we consider impossible. The ancients didn't need explosives to destroy entire cities. They didn't depend on catapults to break enemy morale. They had something infinitely more terrifying. They weaponized the very air into an invisible lethal weapon. And history recorded this as divine miracles, because it was more comfortable than admitting the truth. They were victims of psychological warfare technology that defied all comprehension. The battle for your mind began in the first second of this video. Before we reveal the complete arsenal of these invisible acoustic weapons, comment "I felt it" if you perceived the disturbing vibration at the beginning. We need to document how many of us are still tuned to these lethal frequencies forgotten by official history. The Sirens song was not supernatural seductive music. It was a neurological disorientation weapon using specific frequencies to induce auditory hallucinations and total loss of motor coordination. Sailors didn't throw themselves into the sea from irresistible passion. They were victims of directed sonic attack that completely compromised the central nervous system. The Banshees' wail was not the supernatural lament of a spirit. It was a concentrated infrasound pulse designed to provoke instant paralyzing terror. Frequencies between 16 and 19 hertz that make the eyeball vibrate violently, creating terrifying visual hallucinations. The ancestral fear of ghosts was a neurological symptom of exposure to directed sonic weapons. Pan's flute did not induce mystical pastoral ecstasy. It was a mass panic device operating on multiple simultaneous frequencies to instantly psychologically collapse entire military formations. Soldiers didn't throw themselves from enchanted music. They were victims of acoustic psychological warfare more sophisticated than any existing modern military technology. Every divine miracle, every supernatural event, every manifestation of the gods described in ancient texts carries precise technical signatures of directed frequency weapons. Our mythology is not baseless poetic fantasy. It's classified military archive of civilizations that weaponized the very physics of sound against enemies. Amphitheater of Epeiros, Greece. Not just a public cultural entertainment venue. Military precision acoustic amplifier, capable of focusing sound waves at specific points with potentially lethal intensity. Curved architecture mathematically calculated to transform whispers into directed sonic projectiles. Perfect parabolic geometry allows sound of 60 decibels at the center to be amplified to 150 lethal decibels in a specific target area 200 meters away. Acoustically lethal zone where no human being can maintain normal brain function. Possibly it wasn't just theater, but a testing laboratory for mass psychological destruction weapons. Underground structures of the Colosseum were not just for animals and gladiators. Geometry suggests possible resonance chamber function to amplify specific sounds. Theoretically, Romans could have used architecture for acoustic psychological conditioning effects on the audience during public spectacles. They were not simply soldiers marching to battle. They were specialized operators of a neurological destruction orchestra. Every trumpet, every drum, every instrument we documented was a component of an integrated psychological warfare system. Oracle's Codex is the only channel investigating the complete score of this acoustic terror symphony. If you want to witness the forensic reconstruction of the final crescendo, subscribe right now. The fall of Jericho was not a divine miracle. It was the final act of a perfectly executed military opera. 2003. University of Coventry, England. Dr. Richard Wiseman. Controlled scientific experiment exposing volunteers to 17 Hz infrasound during musical concert. Documented result: 22% of participants reported inexplicable fear sensations, spine chills, ghostly presence feeling. 2013. NASA officially documents that 19 Hz frequencies cause resonance in human eyeball, creating scientifically measurable visual hallucinations. University of Manchester, 2014. Exposure to infrasound for just 3 minutes results in severe anxiety in 89% of subjects, symptoms identical to those described in texts about divine terror that overcame ancient armies. Modern science confirms that acoustic technology described in ancient texts is perfectly functional. If we can replicate effects in laboratory with basic equipment, what level of sophistication could civilizations specialized in military acoustics have achieved? Scientific evidence validates every historical account we considered impossible. Military analyst reconstructing Operation Jericho, 1400 BC. Not mystical religious siege. Calculated, acoustic precision military operation. 7 priests with shofars are not spiritual leaders praying. They are specialized operators of directed frequency devices. Each trumpet tuned to calculated specific frequency to induce structural failure by resonance in local limestone walls. 7-day march is not mystical religious ritual, it's acoustic calibration process to identify natural resonance frequency of specific fortifications. Each turn around the city maps maximum structural vulnerability points where convergent sound waves will have optimized destructive efficacy. 7th day, mathematically perfect military synchrony. 7 different frequencies emitted simultaneously create constructive interference that amplifies vibration to critical structural collapse levels. Final shout is not religious celebration. It's a concentrated sonic pulse that disintegrates molecular bonds of limestone mortar. Walls don't fall by divine miracle. They disintegrate by physics applied as precision lethal weapon. Modern LRAD devices used for crowd control reach a maximum of 160 directed decibels, exactly the calculated intensity that ancient texts describe as voice of the gods, that spread instant terror in military formations. Technology didn't evolve drastically, it was systematically rediscovered. Havana syndrome, affecting American diplomats worldwide, identical neurological symptoms to those described in manuscripts about attacks by invisible demons, in medieval texts, persistent nausea, loss of balance, measurable neurological damage, same clinical signature of exposure to directed sonic weapons. Every modern urban environment is an artificially controlled sonic landscape. Specific frequencies are monitored and regulated by authorities. The question isn't whether sonic technology exists, it's who has access to it and how it's being applied. Ancestral acoustic weapons were never completely abandoned. They were perfected and camouflaged in modern technology. Every biblical miracle, every supernatural event, every unexplained phenomenon that you now suspect has acoustic explanation represents a fragment of psychological warfare manual that continues to be applied. Knowledge is the only defense against sonic manipulation. Understanding physical principles, we develop psychological immunity to effects. Our ability to recognize suspicious acoustic patterns is the first line of defense against modern psychological warfare applied through sound.
Jericho's trumpets continue echoing in frequencies we cannot consciously hear. But our bodies detect, our minds react. Our behavior is influenced without explicit consent. Every suspicious urban noise, every unexplained hum, every sound that provokes irrational discomfort deserves rigorous scientific investigation. What historical miracle do you now recognize as possible documented sonic attack? What supernatural event carries potential technical signature of acoustic psychological warfare? Comment your theory based on historical and scientific evidence. Let's collectively develop acoustic literacy to detect potential sonic manipulation before it compromises our mental economy. Each acoustic weapon we scientifically understand reduces its potential power over our minds. Oracle's Codex exists to develop collective immunity against sonic manipulation through rigorous education. Subscribe to maintain active scientific vigilance. The next investigation may reveal a frequency that is influencing your environment at this exact moment. Silence has never been so revealing. Listen scientifically. The physics of sound continues to be weaponized.